Hello. There is Babayaros seeds. Again, I donated that, and that's positive. A hyper additional name to call ourselves, but just for science, so we can discern. Hyper invisible, but still discernible. Well, again, that hyper conjunction to the parts of speech being the invisible, but still discernible. You know, and with reason. This is how the ancients appreciated languages before the sciences became criminally foreign influenced. They were led by how there is an identity they share, while not, but anyway. And the anyway part comes with the science of pantheism that became from off campuses, criminally re engineered, forced, tricked, or persuaded to roles without realizing, and those sustained so without realizing too. Names A through Z of the human species body became more and more incapable of affording discern properly convictions proper by the with the as the short words by the identity the sciences share. That one that is hyper visible but still discernible, the same one with the grammar as the one that is not our species body that invented why there are two eyes. It is not the other species bodies that invented it, but it is anyway. And we are distinct, we are non-distinct, and we are simultaneous, but we are further hyper simultaneous, further hyper simultaneous, with appreciation of this, up to the extent we know what caused the species bodies to be manifest the way they are, slash we are, and we are slash they are, in estimation, too. The value of the contemplation of it equally valued simultaneously. Appreciation of that is where evolution's fruits, gifts, it means from nowhere come. Excuse me. So, at locations, areas, and states, everywhere the human species body has a body standing, there are qualities of fact, treatment, nature, premises, treatments, but quality slash qualities of fact, treatment, nature, aspects slash aspects of fact, treatment, nature, and fact, treatment, nature itself as criminal insidiousness slash hypercriminal insidiousness. I'm not a lawyer. This is per how nature shows us to appreciate this. For example, Watergate was about other people's information. And don't forget, since founding, have not addressed what is recorded. There are fact, treatment, nature, predicate acts, whole methods of them, and relative delusions that the prisons had, names on and off corrections offices and on and off judicial offices, recorded through lifetimes increasingly involved with crime scenes and with the names next to them and with the killers themselves, like at body dumping spots. On a mass scale, this raised identities of experts on the names of as the names of the people of the sciences, entertaining, for example, in self-valued roles with use slash s of America's founders' words, leaving out what they declassified about that, forcing it left out roles by a breaching method slash breaching methods. Everyone had those roles forced as now hyperaditional methods, but using its method. And then it shows everyone how they need to rationalize that or be sensed to. That's what the laws were. See, they bring up how slavery was with black and white, and they bring up the Civil War, and they left out and leave out, even though it's recorded, and our founders demonstrate, understand this, and tell on it. Tactical, in other words, both the North and South were still entrenched with slavery right through the Civil War. And look what, in other words, the suburbs were designed tactically. The nature, this breaching method had perfected itself from semi-ancient times. There are proofs that they took down mountains in Africa and what is now America to and Mexico to take away the river. to tactically denature the ground, its identity relation to itself and the value of that. Because the breaching method still appreciates it that way because the ancients appreciated it this way before the scientists could no longer afford to have the science of pantheism followed. Pantheism about that identity, that singular, hyper-singular identity of hyper-invisible but still discernible for science. It is why and is how we need more. It is why/how we need more and how/why we need more than one name for a verb. A verb, we need a predicate, participle natures, present participle, past participle. We need more than one word for identity. We need the word nature for it too. Because of how, just like distinctly from how value has relativity, value and value progressions have relativity to positive and negative simultaneously. It is also further hyper-simultaneously, /hyper-simultaneously. And again, the opposite sequence nature, /simultaneous nature is true distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously for that which is further /hyper-simultaneously. Because just like our bodies have as the cell body and then another distinct identity of relationship, to how it is manifest, for example, as chloroplast, as a cell body, and as another identity of value/value progression as itself, but distinctly, as the cell nucleus is distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous for that which is two, further hyper-simultaneous. And there is the cell walls also of chloroplast, also manifest differently though, but as the same body as each cell, and they are connected. And the body of life is coming through this, and it is appreciation of clear gases, positive or negative too. No, but note this relative to its body. As if the same way you want the parts of your body to be and stay a value progression to your complete identity, a semi-nature relationship to it. Each complete identity, even each entire species body, has a semi-nature relationship to this system. That one is being functional, being a distinct identity of hyper-invisible but still discernible, as the hyper-conjunction /hyper-conjunction. In other words, that pantheism was more probably led by. See, the nature of debate contains quality aspects in nature that is being and has been used remotely, criminally, foreign influence, tactically, delusions, raw. So only known at locations, areas, and states are identities of the law that want and needed their value and opinions to be valued as such. You guys came through breached campuses. You're supposed to understand the most principal thing about American history is our founders behind James Madison's plan, why and how it had to be the way it was, why and how no one had free speech, why and how the people how they even get away with pretending our founders had free speech is because they're self-valuing, criminally foreign influence having been and being now, and outlooks toward it to self-valuing it, while all that used remotely. Forgiveness is all kinds of ways at once because they let the people tell too. In other words, not sanity, not one body legitimate allows evidence is proper with the simplest things, like black pupils, whites of eyes, a breaching method assigned to other, clearer than day, that's discernible. And we have had this left out, that's even more discernible. It never left. It's hiding behind and keeping the North and South, the nature of the questions, the nature of the answers, the nature of the people involved with this. Clearer than day, others communicated for James Madison and our founders. Oh, what's your research? Get on, get down. You guys are quoting books that are criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. Tactically, black pupils and people in the cities. No, especially differentially, whatever difference they have. That was and is used by the breaching method, where we are fact-cheaping nature, where how we are functional, and that has where syntax and function that have relativity slash hyper relativity. You guys are making everything greater than it is and simultaneously smaller than it is. Tactical interior from how nature uses what is greater than all things and what is more finite than all things at the same time, while it is all things distinctly that way too. Because we only have a portion of the identity of all space slash existence. That is the value of each subject. But wherever we have that, we have its complete identity of relation. Its complete identity of relationship to itself, and have the value of that three ways, equally increasing as value, as what we can discern, connects distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, but then for slash hyper simultaneously to its complete body. The same way, cell body, cell nucleus, cell wall, slash S. And the value of the gases, the clear gases, and in other words, and clear water. Hopefully clear. Nature shows us its body is hypernated pure, your own is. It is showing you your body is not Native American, but some are. Because it's showing us itself. Nature itself is showing us. There is a hyper foreign name and method that came from semi-ancient times. And it caused things and maintains things having been caused, blamed on other things, other themselves. It maintains that self-value, specifically to exploit other location, slash S. Specifically have that back as to collusion slash S, where everyone was forced to collusion sustained with what they didn't want, but no one had control over it. In other words, it juxtaposed with that even more, and then it was watching and paying attention to quality aspects in nature with fact-cheaping nature. Invested styles, the same way nature forces styles with boxing, with the martial arts, because you have the rules different. See, but the rules have been abridged since semi-ancient times, and that still stands. So the voices, the definitions, appreciation of things like rules, they're still fake a difference used the way the breaching method has reassigned difference to be used. And or that body, that and its voice slash voice is sensed, even if it is a majority of people, that body, even if it is everyone, even if it is any grouping of countries from this, while the locations, areas, and states have entertained syntax and are entertaining syntax that's not holding. You're not being led to. We don't have to hold it. It's inseparable from anything, even if made up its way. It'd be with value difference of relativity to and as the value of the smallest finite detail and or the order of the finite, because it has relativity slash hyperrelativity both. In other words, and hyperrelativity slash relativity. And that's critical too, the same way. How there is an identity that is bigger than east to west and bigger than, in other words, west to east as itself, distinctly, but non-distinctly too. and simultaneously, but also further hyper simultaneously, so we could gain direct, not just direction from this, not just discernment, but hyper discernment. But we have to appreciate its way, or our value is forced from here. We're to appreciate our value. We have to appreciate how nature itself shows us to appreciate a special difference as a guy. But it does not work entertaining or having entertained treatments of bullying logic, of positive treatments, negative treatments. Oh, this is this, so this is positive to this. You know, in other words, this employed all natures of integrity, fake, black pupils. Forgiveness is so we can force, use name calling or whatever. For example, it's different if you're doing that to say who disbelieves. We need, in other words, if someone wants to be aggressive, swear, whatever, we have to have the who disbelieves act, because they are increasingly collusion at all sides of criminal and civil cases, at campuses, next to them, news at the same time, names next to body dumping spots. There was a mass possession of U/S of predicate acts with facts, methods, and acts stuck into databases at each age of campus, each nature of them. So they're leaking this. And there's a Dawn LaConch. I never had a word of conversation with her. They probably took a picture of me walking by her. It was real fast. It has something to do with the roles of the World Trade Center attack and all these different countries in the news. They don't, in other words, they have collusions with prisons too, and on-off corrections offices and judicial branch offices, increasingly with totally different body dumping spots and reported killers. And involved also with like a Sandy Hook prison, involved with a serial killer, and with people from Puerto Rico involved with the police chief Centron, and people in the corners of the streets, like on Elm Streets and Weathersfield and Rocky Hill, involved with police switching, forging names with all the departments, also with O'Brien family, and ones with this name, Phil Kalo, identity theft, fraud, slanders. Phil Kalo has been pretending, he knew me through time, only one time verbally, which is one of the people involved with the child. He's increasingly tied to proven years apart child abusers, leaders of the kids. Increasingly, former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, has roles with this. All kinds of medical and other natures of organized crime. Medical offenders of kids, sexual. They have Mendez police families and domains ones involved with it, with predicate acts with people in my area. Not everyone speaking through other than they pretend it's personal. I've been asking you guys to get them on paper. They're needing to use the crime methods of pretending they wanted privacy. That's why they don't say anything. They're refusing to get on paper. In other words, they're also fishing for all kinds of cover-ups because there are all kinds of natures of predicate acts. They have rules replacing what's actually digitally recorded and communicated, putting whole fake conversations with people that don't even know each other of all ages, including ones with badges and involved with intelligence, foreign and domestic, like a Leahy family. A Rick C.M. Paglione has a Leahy family and a Kevin Harris involved with predicate acts with people with Quinnipiac University and with Central Connecticut State University, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and federal evidences, crimes, and crime methods. Also with Brian Silver, with New Britain, a whole bunch of people with New Britain Superior Court and Hartford courts have roles with leaders of kids and their kids and people next to the campuses involved with a whole bunch of different countries, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, the news family members at the same time. Names next to body dumping, but this is recorded. Even on Facebook, things were confirmed. That's why they were taking away my Facebook page. Because in other words, what's recorded are manifest use /S of all location /S for an identity theft, fraud, slander. When you pay attention to mandate law proper and get my word, because they attach everyone to fake and change communications with everyone around them. They have people around everyone do this against themselves, not even realizing this breaching method used our countries remotely from abroad and had sustained that too through the groupings too. So either that or that would be blamed, and it would be true because it was for sustained role. But it is also true that there's a hyper foreign worse in keeping it. Otherwise, because nature is showing us, we have means to cause positive value nature progressions, the acts of nature everywhere at once. We have means to put share the same feeling we all love and can adapt with as a human species body, admitting the grounds tactically to nature before America's founders were even born. Black pupils. There's a landscape theater. The best infrastructure is only good relative to the suburbs were designed before America's founders were even born. And with those slavery laws against everyone. For example, I learned that notes at Central Connecticut State University, and even if it was made up. But in other words, that's what we learned in notes at Central Connecticut State University, that if anyone was even having been, if they found out anyone had been speaking about building infrastructure outside of internationally monitored conversations, they would hurt that person and everyone. See, but it's so much at once, a certain type of victim / hyper victim forgets and is maintained to leave out how we have black people's rights of eyes. Leave out how those crazy laws were connected simultaneously with that one sickly distinctly. Because it also made function and keeps functions by how sickly non-distinctly is left out. But people speak about reason or campuses. And the nature of debate contains quality aspects of nature, of collusions that are really, really sick. They're putting fake things in databases between the campuses and relative to where and how they keep all sides of criminal and civil cases. The law names, the intelligence, foreign and domestic, they never had a one identity of a free name. Or no matter what they do, in other words, just because they sacrifice their bodies, they don't sacrifice to where it counts. Black pupils. We could force, because anyone who denies that this is about a predicate act with facts delivery system method, they're going to have inherent to, active to, and progressive to their logic demonstrations of the same thing. And we have the means to force this with mandated law, but they're not following mandated law. And they're pretending, well, what's your definition of mandate? Get them on paper, one name and sequence. They have obligations. If they're going to deny who disbelieves, that's why we need to disbelieve. Who disbelieves that. They've been changing and faking what's typed and people tried to communicate to Judge Napolitano. In other words, and then they get the exceptions, they employ that difference, who's right or wrong, leaving out the foreign name. Let's keep it on the breaching method itself, though, because it is a scientific value. A human fact treatment nature breaching method is a scientific value demonstrated by nature that asks us to ask ourselves, what things were slavery about always? And that's one of them. It was a human fact treatment nature breaching method that had been entrenched, because you have to be entrenched with some sick organization since before America's founders were even born. Because and this is relative, our founders communicated for us to understand about how and why they did not have free speech. Everyone's speech was measured. Also, their communications was measured. Collusions against selves, helping selves against selves. I mean, helping selves as collusions too, because it needed criminal insidiousness, natures of positive treatment, syntactically, nature's interest, and negative at the same time to hide behind. It needs to keep a quality of fact treatment nature, criminal insidiousness / hypercriminal insidiousness. And it is that way as a trinity because that's forced by nature. It is inseparable from the smallest finite detail this way. Distinctly from, but also not distinctly from how it is inseparable from and as the value of all that is active. Truth, relativity / hyperrelativity. All that is time / forever nature's body. All that is to come. It is the value of all that is to come. It shows you its body. It is the value of why and how we know there are seasons that are not even here, and they are to come until they don't. And which the only reason our entire species body could have self valued so long. Criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. Nature, fact, nature, quality aspects in nature, and not be destroyed by nature. Because the rest of the species bodies have no criminal foreign influences. Our value has been the value at identity relativity to its complete identity. And to Earth's a special difference, its value as lethal hadith for space nature transfer. And where A through Z are right about the other names being evil and good, they're opposite of the way they're supposed to do it. Because there's another name involved. There are hyper victims. There's the victims / hyper victims as countries A through Z. And this is a game. This is a method that's hiding behind the names uses. Faker than day. Otherwise, you guys would have addressed what nature has been showing us. Which while we pay attention to this, it shows us that what nature shows us is replaced Black peoples. So we're going to be led by this identity of hyper simultaneous. In the Republic, nature shows us the Republic came with pantheism as a function to itself. Black pupils, here, we'll ground it fast. Begin this class, vaccines. I'm not a lawyer. All sides of criminal and civil cases. Lawyers, the courts themselves. Even we're going to examine this with relativity to witch trials and what has been said about it and not said. And we're going to prepare as a species body to force the formal law words, hyper-perfect, and or else we sense. And it's through a system, and as a system, tactical ulterior from these ones. It tells us we hunger and thirst, not to go have to buy bottled water, not to have to debate the costs on fixing lead pipes, leaving out the Black people's rights of life, because it's a hyper evidential. Don't leave out the hyper evidential. Pantheism. Hear its name again. And legions too. Ugh. And tribes. There were three natures of Americans' founders before America's physical founders were even born. And of the entire species body, they were the last to fall into the suits and ties, counters and exceptions as collusion /S, and with what is not named A through Z. And has already been through all kinds of other apparent layers of things. Vaccines, but no way we can overcome this. Everyone needs to know how to speak. So first, I'll practice Krieg. In other words, there were three natures of Americans founded because they were fighting with each other because that was forced. They were fighting fact treatment nature-wise about how to do it because they tactically denatured the earth. Now, the first thing, because we're going to address people that are wanting to use just because something, they're going to be using criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw, fact treatment nature, quality aspects of nature. We know this because they have left out how we have Black people's rights of eyes, but we're not going to do it here now. We know because they have the roles sending people in, yelling at presidents and things like that on crowds, being at town hall meetings and things like that. And the difference between that are the town halls themselves. You should see the jerky child offenders. They have more then and now recorded like a Michael Emmett and people next to the state education building involved with retired mayors. All kinds of natures of organized crime and roles with overt criminal enterprises with grammar school kids and their family members, and private ones and overt ones. And they don't even know themselves. The news at the same time, they don't know this up because they're putting fake ties, fake communications, make fake little tricks, time where people are going to and then and then they're going to say a thing and then pretend they communicated. Increasingly, people with the Leahy family have been sticking fake in a Harris family. Are families that have been sticking fake information into databases between campuses. They have roles with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and various courts family members involved with Quinnipiac University. A whole bunch of people know my name. I don't even know their names, too. Involved with the Kevin Harris, too. Involved with child abusers, leaders of the kids, years apart. And my principal, I barely knew him. I only had love for him. I still, in other words. So Kevin Harris is also involved with, abuses of his girlfriend, trying to get them to federal evidence crimes, various natures of organized crime roles, identity theft, fraud, slanders, fake ties to other people. There are proofs that they took a picture of him walking out of a door behind me at the side of the Wethersfield High School, another to make it look like we even spoke. I never spoke with him. In other words, he has roles of people at Quinnipiac University with the World Trade Center attack and more child abusers, leaders of the kids. And these are women too. And these are people's careers. And that is has been hid behind, including the careers at Whiting Forensics, increasingly involved with people tied to a Joshua Julian, increasingly involved with planting predicate acts on my street, and with people that are tied to years apart, child abusers, leaders of kids, first forced, involved with all kinds of different natures of organized crime, /S and their roles at the spots next to the news locations that I've been begging to fix the World Trade Center predicate acts too, that WFSB had roles with, including with Saudis. They forced collusions with them per worse. They forced all sides. They used America's name remotely and the Saudis' name remotely, not just WFSB, not just the people next to them involved, not just as the ones next to Fox Connecticut News too. And as ones, there are proofs. If there's a Fred Grisey with ties to New Haven and the FBI, he's one of the ones recorded involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids, foreign and domestic, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and judges' family members, involved with intelligence family members that used to live near me, that are involved with various departments and their family members with, sexual and medical offenders of kids, overt criminal enterprises, private, domestic, overt. Even on Facebook, others recorded and they pretended. Sometimes it was Facebook's roles. Some ways it was the agencies involved, and they're leaking because they're preventing me writing. I just need simple response. And I've been asking since I was a kid. They've been stacking fake things in databases. A whole bunch of people from the Britain Superior Court are involved with sequence shifts and predicate acts with a Jonathan Mayano. In 1994, he sought me out to make confessions, demonstration, confirmations of his roles with people. These are also people with hospitals and their mental health care side and military, foreign and domestic, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought together, showing presidents fake things. They put fake transcripts, fake conversations with me at Hartford Hospital with this Leahy family. There's people with the name Lombardo too. Has something to do with the people with the Parks and Recreation and Wethersfield and the town offices, their roles with their speech, their syntax. They have the public television also involved with Russians, involved with Clintons, with the Clinton groups. And there was a 1989 Reader's Digest article by Robert Luskin. No, by Eugene Meffin. Eugene Meffin wrote a 1989 Reader's Digest article regarding the Clintons and a Koya group. I don't know the Koya group. I know there's a Don LaConche who was involved with a whole bunch of people at Trinity College, with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, with Heather Hansen, with people involved with the Robert Rodriguez and some untimely deaths on my street roles, intercities, and one at Trinity College. Even if it was made up, they were planting evidences, digital and a verbal letter I never wrote to Hugh Ogden And there's an Eric Oliveri who also sought me out that he's got predicate acts and identity theft, fraud, slanders, lying about himself and me, fake ties between me and others and the ones on my street involved with him, with multiple police departments and people at and next to the state judicial branch offices and at and next to the state corrections offices, has something to do with their roles all along Hustling Highway and with databases tied locations in the markets and their roles with conversations with my teachers behind my back. And they have roles with Joshua Stryker, also confessed and recorded by students, intercities and interstates, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders of me. He lies about himself and about me, fake ties, fake natures of ties to me since I was a kid. And then as an adult at Trinity College with a Dean Alford and involved with sequence ships. And there's an officer that uses the name Darth Vader, who is involved with wire and digital crimes with a principal upskirt nature that they forced. And they have more medical and sexual, like a Leahy family has their daughter involved with it. And identity theft, fraud, slanders, fake conversations with me they pretended through the mail too. A Leahy family. Wethersfield police made confessions about the police chief and they have them switching names and do little tricks to make it fake like we had a conversation at my house. And they faked me in conversations as a kid and then as an adult at the police station. The police departments put mass fake identity theft, fraud, slanders rules relative to their roles with you readings of statutes and precedents, also with Russians involved with the Wethersfield police chief's lawyer and the lawyer Robert Chevery, a lawyer, a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants. And he had been warned in an NLRB case by a federal judge, if that other case came up, not to make sure he had a lawyer. So it's proof that, if he wants to say in the background, oh, it was my lawyer. This is the former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act. Increasingly, they are involved each year with people from Central Connecticut State University who have roles with federal crimes intercities. And these are like wire crime acts and methods, mail crime acts and methods. But these are timed collusion /S at all natures of crime scenes and with all various natures of crime groups. As the ones countering them, they run into high life aggressions and the family members of people with fire campuses and other natures of campuses. A whole bunch of people with UConn and people with the law are increasingly involved with, evidential racketeering worse than war crime, which is also one of the things that slavery is about always, where nature teaches us about the law. We don't have to be lawyers, Black people. We must demand, as in who disbelieves. We need the Who Disbelieves Act. And we're going to force mandated law, proper and with love and care. And we're going to give you means, you try to do things, wait for them to do the money, like that. In other words, we're going to just start going instant, things that are better than free. And we're going to get the fact, cheap, nature, quality, right? In other words, these people, they can't defend it. They're defending their logic and styles of logic and natures of logic. To defend themselves, they are reliant upon criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. Fact, cheap, nature, quality aspects of nature in that being and having been used remotely, which is also recorded. But it is also recorded in the form of them pretending things are recorded, which is also recorded. But this also shows like all their treatments when they're having people speak on serious things so they can't go back and defend themselves. And so they have those excuses. This breaching method hides behind those excuses. It propagated roles with that self-cultivated or that body was sensed. And it is Black pupils. When did humanity's voice forget to leave this out? It's still not here, not here. In other words, people jump in, then they want to pretend that's with the group thinks. Group thinks what I'm saying here. It doesn't mean they're going to type in. See, but this only has people with cheap. cheap. We're gonna go hard, and we're gonna go most finite at the same time. Otherwise, we're gonna sense. In other words, black people's in this time. Our founders' world communications have been changed. We're gonna appreciate how nature shows us that communications is simultaneously greater than, more finite than, and with active relativity to what is said. Thank God, because too, we have to appreciate how there is remote use /S consciously of self-value use /S of our founders' words, leaving out what they declassified about that, leaving out how no one had free speech and everyone was tortured, extorted, and enslaved. Per a method. We're going to pay attention to that method that we could discern. And people pretend this is opinion. We're going to examine people that are pretending others make opinions dishonestly. They change what people say when we speak on predicate acts. So we're going to do these ones that we all agree with. All exceptions, exception nature, they will come with demonstrations of the same thing. But that's why my video won't get heard. Because, in other words, too, you guys were shown, recorded, speaking about fear and things like that, motivations, leaving out the breaching method. You guys can't speak on emotions. Let me show you how nature itself shows you this. WFSB has roles with some foreign and domestic medical families who are also involved with drugs and medicines, crimes with kids with them, and delusions relative. Fear God. Get them. There's a Dr. Laura Saunders and people intercities next to schools further involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids, identity theft, they're building on this too. Fear God. Let's get them on paper. Fix the fake conversations with me, WFSB. Get that done.